travel every year to come back. I ran an open mic here for years, and I should be louder for traffic. And I don't know, do I need it? Ladies and gentlemen, I'll just be loud like my loud self. I think we're okay. I hope we're okay. But in recent years, Cyberwit Press wanted to publish books of mine, and most recently they published a book that is titled The Universe is in Your Hands. It is literally about travel all around the world. It goes from one side to the other. I even have a poem for each at the Pacific and the Atlantic Oceans. And it got stuff for astronomy and the universe itself. There's an index in the back, it's a location index. I never had a location index in a poetry book. What's that about? Anyway, but there's a lot of descriptive stuff. But I wanted to fit as many things about Chicago as I could into this reading for you guys. And thank you for waiting. Thank you. This one poem, it's not a big deal, but I like sharing it because it's about my love of Chicago. So I've shared every place I read while I'm in town this week. This is the second poem for Chicago in this book, and it is titled Big Shoulders. This was her home. This poet went to Carl Sandburg High, but her friend Brian lived further south. And one summer day she sat in his car as he excitedly told her he wanted to show her something. She didn't know where he was taking her. Her tension mounted as his anticipation grew, driving her farther south and east than either one of their high schools. Now, remember, this was back in the day when Tinley Park was not congested and there were still abandoned blocks before the town was then all under construction and ugly buildings littered the landscape. Brian finally pulled over, told her to get out of the car, and they walked through gravel until trees cleared one small spot along the horizon. He stopped. Stop. Look over there, he said as he pointed his finger to a tiny space between the trees. This poet from Carl Sandburg High saw the skyline of downtown Chicago with high-rises glistening like diamonds in the rough. The Chicago skyline was just south of where Carl Sandburg lived. This poet smiled, stared a while, and made the decision right then and there that this was her destination. This was where she was meant to be. She was not there yet, but this stormy, brawling city of big shoulders, this was her home. It's just so neat. Anyway, but the next one, the opposite page in the book for Chicago, this is in a book that is titled Because of a Fire. When we see a fire overtake the 850-year-old Notre Dame, a monument to religion, beauty, history, then wildfires engulf islands, ravage 250,000 acres annually, we are shocked by the loss from fire, that primal, silent killer. But we keep candles lit. You hear the crackling campfire. We feel the fireplace warmth, which reminds us how we still love fire so. Because if a mass fire seems to mean death and destruction, maybe after, say, the 1871 Great Fire of Chicago that took over the only city that I love, maybe that destruction only led to something building bigger, better, stronger, that made more sense. Even Chicago's underground subways are made for the post-Great Fire pedestrian underground walkways. And when I now walk in diverse cultural neighborhoods until I reach the lake, I turn to see the most beautiful skyline I've ever seen. And that's when it clicks. This frightening history of fire that scares some so. Well, afterward, that's when people create something that seems so right, all because of a fire. And I read this book for China. but I mentioned Chicago, so I gotta share it with you. I like this one. This is my kind of town. The universe is in your hands of. I stepped over many palace door sills in Beijing's Forbidden City, negotiated golden bars from 6 inches to a foot tall. They may have once kept rain and mice out, but these bars were also symbolizing power. The higher one's status, the higher the bar, people had to step over, not on, but over. But then I left, entered the summer palace. That's where an older Chinese gentleman walked up to me and asked, in the best English he could muster, where I was from. I told him the United States, and then I said Chicago. And that's when this man's eyes lit up, and he said, my kind of town. And I laughed, nodding my head in agreement, until he leaned into me and he said, Frank Sinatra sang that. And I laughed again. Yes, he did, I said, because even though this world is so vast, we will always find ways to connect with one another. Two more, I know you were probably, yeah, give me a thumbs up. These aren't in this book, but this, one time I said I'm going to write, every day of the year, and I came up with, well, what happened this day in history? What happened this day? And I had so many things that it became a 2-volume set of every event of the year of poetry. And some of them may be what happened on Lent, and some of them may be Atheist Awareness Day. There's all sorts of things. And this one poem that I'm going to share with you was written on the calendar date Illinois became a state. And it is titled Knew the Word. Did a man from my very distant familial past know what he found, discovering this rich land with so much to offer? Did he know what he took from the people who knew this land all too well? Whether he do or not, we remember those once holders of this sacred land. The Algonquin-speaking tribes native to this land knew the word Illinois really meant tribe of superior men. I cannot speak for what my ancestors did to you, but just know that I, personally, hear your words, know your meaning, and will honor this land as if it has always been my own. For to me, Illinois is only my own, which I honor the way you do, as I now honor you. I'm going to end with, and people who know me probably would remember this one, maybe, I don't know. And this also tells you how old I am, because I talk about not the Willis Tower, but the Sears Tower. And I talk about the first Chicago building. I think it's the Bank of America building or some nonsense now. But if you know downtown Chicago, you might know what I'm talking about. This is a poem titled New to Chicago. And thank you all for listening. I'm still new to this city. I know, I've lived here for years, but I haven't gone to the Sears Tower Observatory since my junior prom. But when I walk by the first Chicago building, the beams along the north side sloping up, parabolic pillars curving up to the sky. When I walk by the first Chicago building, I walk up along the side and lean up against one of those sloping pillars. Press my body against the cold concrete, feel the cold against my chin, my breasts, my thighs, and I look up along that curve, stretching up toward the sky. You know, those pillars look like racetracks, and I can see something come rushing down that curve. A matchbox car, a race car, a marble, a bowling ball, a 2-ton weight. I see the speed, the power, and it almost makes me afraid to look up. But every time I go by the first Chicago building, I do the same thing. I to do this little ritual, and it feels like the first time. Sorry, I didn't know how long everything was, and I just wanted to be able to share as much as I could.
Thank you for doing that.
No, thank you for staying around.
Yeah.
So,
That first Chicago, remember the first Chicago Bank building?
I think it was the first bank building.
Yeah, and now it's like, is it Chase or?
Is it Chase? Is it Bank?